Hello, welcome back for another episode of Momentum. Round 2 done and doosted. Jake Marketo is with me. Jakey, how you going, mate? What's doing?
Mate, I'm going well. Big weekend of footy. There's some good things to be able to talk about today. I'm looking forward to going in on it.
Yeah, same here, same here. Let's get stuck in straight in. We won't waste too much time. Before we begin, just want to give a shout out to On Track Meals. They're our new friend of the show. We've got a code with them, Momentum. You can get 10% off your order. So use On Track Meals. They are ready to eat meals, not dehydrated, Aussie made and owned, and they ship Australia wide. So get stuck in to On Track Meals. You can look at them up, On Track Meals on Instagram. Otherwise, you can go and purchase through their online store on ontrackmeals.com. And then Breathies as well. Jakey, I know that you're high on your Breathies. You've been using it all the time. It's so good when you're training, so good, obviously, when you're sleeping as well, just to really open up those nostrils, get all of that oxygen in, good for recovery. So Breathies as well, www.breathies.com.au. That is Breatheeze. Breathies, get stuck into it. All right. Let's get stuck into some talking points. The big one, I think, is Bronson Xerri. Now, what I wanted to do is I wanted to play a clip. I was watching Bloke in a Bar, or at least one of the little clips from them today, and they had one of their usual journos on.
Yep.
And they went through a little bit of a timeline of events, and I think the good thing about this is the fact that we don't have a lot of information, and a lot of the reports that are out there on this are quite conflicted. So it's hard to really grab a read on what the situation is like. We've got a time frame here. So I'm just going to play a little clip here, Jakey, and then I want you to give your immediate thoughts on the whole situation. So let's just play this one.
Someone from Bronson Xerri's camp has put out there that he's looking for a release. I brought my notebook to run us through a bit of a timeline. Nice. This actually starts well before the Las Vegas game in round 1, where Bronson was apparently lucky to have a spot in that team. Then the Dogs go over, they win in Vegas. It was a close game, but I think Bronson Xerri didn't play that bad. Late last week, Bronson was told that he was going to get dropped for the game against the Raiders in round 3. Xerri, obviously, after hearing this news, was upset. And then the talk from his camp started that he was poised. And I want to say poised. He didn't ask for a release, but was planning on asking for a release from the club. We obviously revealed the story on Saturday afternoon. Maybe 20 minutes later, Gus Gould post on Twitter or X saying that he hasn't asked for a request for release and they're going to get breakfast tomorrow. Then we had yesterday, Bronson Xerri's manager, George Christodoulou, confirmed that Xerri is upset and he's better than a New South Wales Cup player. He also says, and this part's quite interesting, that if Xerri doesn't force his way back into the NRL side, the situation will be revisited. Someone from Bronson Xerri's camp has put out there that he's looking for a release.
Jakey, what are your thoughts?
It came out of nowhere, didn't it? It sort of blew up yesterday. I had a little check on Instagram and I thought to myself, I wonder what's going on here. Like, obviously, we can all jump to conclusions and have our opinions. It looks like Phil Gould's come out and tried to put a little bit of control on damage control and put his opinion out there. We'll never probably fully know the truth, but I wouldn't be surprised if he is dropped this weekend, an immediate release comes out by him in his camp. Because if I look at that, if it does happen that he does get dropped, there's probably talks going on this week on where it could go. The first thing I thought of, and you brought it up as well when we started talking about it, was the Storm, which would be a very, very beneficial move for him and the Storm. Whether the Bulldogs allow that to happen, that's completely up to them. But he is not signed past this year. The business in rugby league is trying to create, I suppose, a safety net for the players, especially the ones who are out and out first graders. He's obviously has the ability to put himself in origin contention with his potential. He's an out and out first grader, and I think he, will find himself possibly at another club if the week goes the way that it already said, that he'll be playing New South Wales Cup.
Well, this is the complicated thing, Jakey, because he actually is signed for 2027. So he's signed for 26 and he's signed for 27. He comes off contract in 2028. So this is.
There was reports saying that this was his last year.
I got to double check that, but from what I read, said that Bronson Xerri was still contracted until 2028. Let me just have a quick look. Yeah, Bulldogs at the end of 2027. Okay, yeah, end of 2027.
So, yeah. then I'm wrong. Then, yeah, my opinion probably changes a little bit. Maybe if he doesn't get, what he wants this week, maybe he's just got to push himself back in the team unless there's other things that are at play that we don't know about.
It's bad optics, isn't it? Like, especially when you've got a lot of time on your deal. If there's enough to come out, obviously for this to have come out that he's requested a release, he would have had to have had a conversation with someone and told them that that's what he's thinking. Like, this doesn't come out of thin air. If this is the sort of thing that's coming out, he's obviously gone to a mate, he's gone to a journo, he's gone to maybe even someone close to his management, and he's conversed that he wants a release or that he's thinking about getting a release. So that's probably the scary thing with the optics around. Obviously, you get dropped to New South Wales Cup, and instead of putting your head down and trying to work your way back into first grade, albeit we don't know why he's been dropped. We don't know what the conversation was between him and Ciraldo. And to be fair, like, he played quite well in Vegas. So I just don't know what the situation is there. But at the same time, if you're a player, and Jakey, I know that you've got, obviously you're a player, you played for St. George, maybe you've been in a similar situation before, going back down to reserve grade. It's a crap look on Bronson Xerri if you're getting dropped to reserve grade, and then a day after being told you're getting dropped, there's a bunch of smoking about you getting requesting a release. It's a bad look, eh?
Well, it is, and as you said, we don't have the whole story. We don't know what's been said. Maybe the Bulldogs have, remember what the Bulldogs did last year in the whole Lachlan Galvin situation. You know what I mean? There are different angles that happen that no one sees, no one hears types of conversations that happen in the business world of rugby league. It's obvious Bronson Xerri probably knows something that we don't. And at the end of the day too, mate, it's all right when clubs want to tell players to leave. If he feels like he's not going to get another crack or been treated unfairly, he's actually in a position, 24, 25 years old, playing some solid first grade. If he can get a chop and a start at another club, you're allowed to throw your hat in the ring. Now, what that does if he doesn't go anywhere is it puts, as you're saying, a bad taste in the mouth of the Bulldogs people, because they actually got him back into the NRL through, an opportunity due to what he went through as a young fella. So there's all these different emotional attachments to a possible outcome. At the end of the day, the Bulldogs have sort of brung this on themselves in a way. I also think, like if you look what they did with Reid, Galvin in, Sexton, there's a lot of juggling of their roster at the moment, and it seems to bring, me outside looking in, a little bit disharmony with some players.
What do you think that this is? We talked about Reid and Toby Sexton, so it leads straight into my next question. Does it look like maybe a bit of a next step into bringing Burton into the centres potentially, and maybe that transition?
Well, that is the rumour, isn't it? They're looking to move Burton to the centres, but even me, I don't think Burton's going to give them more in centre than he does at 6. So, it's looked like they've sort of, they've got this great young half coming through, and they want to have him and Galvin there and have them for the next decade and however it works. But you also got to understand, they're running a very tight ship with how they wish players this is what we're doing and you have to do it. Players are allowed to ask for releases if they're in a position to go to another club. If they feel like they're being mismanaged or not having a fair go, this is what brings it up. With forces met resistance. So these are just some experiences that may happen for the Bulldogs over the next 2, 3, 4 weeks if they're trying to manoeuvre how that their 1 to 17 looks each week.
Well, let's go through a couple of clubs, because it seems like, as you said, there could inevitably be a release coming in from Bronson Xerri and his camp. So we talked about Melbourne. Obviously, Nick Meaney leaving. That makes a lot of sense. He can come into the centres. They can move that Moses Leo kid over to the other side. Jack Howarth's going to move into the back row at some stage as well. So there's a centre spot free for Bronson Xerri, whether it is left or right. So Melbourne, I guess, is probably the front runner. What about, and we sort of threw this up on my page yesterday, Isaac Tungo obviously dropped down to New South Wales Cup as well. Do you see maybe a bit of a trade deal between Isaac Tungo and Bronson Xerri taking place, with Bronson going to the Penrith Panthers?
Well, if the Panthers have got Tungo playing reserve grade, they just, I would imagine they're not just going to bring Xerri in and put him straight into first grade if they're winning games and the guys that are already there are doing the job for them. So, I can see how that trade looks good, but I don't think it's actually logical in the respect that Xerri will be going to a team that's already pretty much set, in my opinion. The best one and the one that makes the most sense is Melbourne. It just depends if Melbourne, want to get him down there and if the deal can be done. The other one is that they've got a bit of cap to spend, and I'm not sure if they're actually looking for an outside back, but a long shot's Parramatta.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Sean Russell's leaving at the end of the year. He's going to the Perth Bears, so that does make a bit of sense. Do you reckon it's going to be, because as I said, he is contracted until the end of 2027. So if we are getting a release, are we getting a bit of a Mitch Barnett type release? So it's going to be at the end of the year. He's going to play out the year with the Dogs and then go, or do you think it's going to be a bit more of an immediate thing? Like, I mean, the fact that we've had a bunch of this already come out with him requesting the release, and as you were sort of saying, if depending on the situation, there could be a bit of a sour taste in the mouth of the Bulldogs and whatnot for giving the opportunity to come back into the NRL, all that sort of factors. Do you think that it's going to be an immediate thing, or do you think it's going to be for next year potentially?
It depends how bitter the relationship is. You don't want blokes coming into the dressing sheds every day bringing a sort of dull attitude, or, beginning to say things that may, put a different perspective on another person without actually knowing what's going on, because that can happen. Rugby league dressing rooms are almost like corporate offices. You know what I mean? Things get said, people say stuff, there's little cliques in certain aspects. So, they want to keep the dressing room as clean as possible. Depending if Xerri wants to continue to buy into the Bulldogs' way, that may keep him there, and maybe Phil Gould does smooth this over, and maybe it's all smoke and mirrors. You know what I mean? Maybe this just settles and Xerri gets a little, talking to and says, "Hey, mate, just because you didn't get one thing go your way, we've actually done a lot for you. Let's up the ante at training. Let's put ourselves into a better position on the field, and you either keep your spot through form, or we're going to put you back down and see what we can do somewhere else. And if you truly do want to go and you think you can't be a Bulldog anymore, maybe we've got to look at other options for us also."
Speaking of another option, just looking through the list here, Sharks for Ramian.
It's possible. We could end back at the Sharks. It depends if the Sharks want him. You know what I mean? Like the club that maybe he wants to go to, or the opportunities are at other clubs, they've also got to want him there. They want to know the full story on why he's actually asked for a release. If it's blatantly because he's been dropped, some clubs may look at that and go, if he's out of form and we want to put him back to get, some form back, and will he carry on like this here? Like these little things now are starting to come into play at clubs, because, as I said, we're in the second round. We're going into the third round. Some teams haven't won a game yet. Some teams are flying. You don't really want to mess up it too much. It's just a bit misfortunate that this has happened with the Bulldogs at the moment, and hopefully they'll come out the other side and everyone can sort of, come back to level peggings.
Yeah, well, look, we'll have to wait and see what happens with the situation. I like your Parashout. I like the Sharkies as well, depending on if they'll take him back after the whole situation, and maybe there is a bit of a relationship that's still there between Bronson, Xerri and the Sharks, and he goes back there. Storm is the best one, I think, that we've both come up with. I even think if he's willing to make the move to Queensland as well, the Cowboys need some outside backs. The Gold Coast Titans probably need some outside backs as well. That'll be an interesting watch, but certainly one to keep an eye on, the Bronson Xerri situation. Anything else on that one, Jakey?
No, he's a good player. He's not going to be short of clubs probably showing interest in him. It's just whether it's going to happen or not.
Yeah, 100%. Mate, one that caught me a little bit off guard this week, we sort of didn't get a chance to react to it because it was the day after we finished recording, but Will Warbrick, he's been linked to a long-term deal with the Warriors. It sounds like that could be something that happens soon. He is off contract at the end of this season. Apparently, the Melbourne Storm won't be able to give him the contract that he's potentially looking for as well. They're paying Xavier Coates big money. They obviously got Munster, Hughesy, Grant for far longer. They're going to have to upgrade very soon as well. So Will Warbrick, also from New Zealand, played rugby sevens for New Zealand for years before coming over. He is actually 28, 29 years of age, Will Warbrick too. So he is in the later stages, or in the prime stages of his career. What are your thoughts? Will Warbrick to the Warriors? They've got a lot of outside backs there.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on this one?
Where did they put him? That's the first thing I thought. I reckon Will Warbrick's a great player. I think he's a great player. I reckon he's a good buy. The only thing that sort of maybe put a little bit of damper on him was he's obviously head knocks last year. But as a player and a professional, he looks 10 out of 10. but I just don't know where he'll play in the Warriors unless they're looking to let an outside back go or how they're going to maneuver what they're going to do in their back line. I don't really see a position for him there. What about you?
This is what I'm sort of thinking, and this is probably me putting my tinfoil hat on a little bit, or maybe outthinking the room. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, maybe a potential move back to rugby, or rugby 360 in the next couple of years, at back end of his career as well, unless Roger wants to go back into the centres. The one that's more likely for me, there was a lot of criticism last year about Dallin Watene-Zelezniak, mainly because of his defence. I think there's a bit of a chance for me that we'll see Will Warbrick take that spot. Okay. I think they're looking at Will Warbrick. Yes, I think the big thing with bringing Will Warbrick into the side is the whole concussion thing. Like last year, he was out for a very long time with concussion, about 8 to 12 weeks. So there's that risk there. But defensively very good, can play both edges, and a very talented outside back. We know how good Will Warbrick can be on his day. And then just, obviously wanting to return to New Zealand. I think it's more of a personal thing too for Will Warbrick wanting to go back home to New Zealand. So, look, the fact that they're giving him a long-term deal as well, I think it is going to be around a 4-year deal for Will Warbrick. So it's going to be a big contract. I think the optics around Dallin Watene-Zelezniak aren't great with this deal, in my opinion. You've also got Alafiana Khan-Pereira at the club, who they've just signed from the Gold Coast Titans. He's playing reserve grade too. They've got Hazen Mellors from South Sydney, who's a real good young junior that they've brought over. So they've got some young guys as well for the future. It's weird. I feel like they've got good depth in their outside backs. And a lot of Warriors fans were commenting saying that, no, we need outside back depth. But if you actually look at that roster, they've got so much depth on the wing. Plus, you've got that Ali Leotawa. You've got Rocco Berry yet to come back to first grade. Like, Tane Tuapiki, if you want to fit him into the side somewhere, maybe he's a bit of depth there on the wing as well. Like, there's a lot of outside backs there. It's a weird optics, isn't it?
Yeah, unless there's a lot of player movement, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But, things can happen over the next 3-4 weeks, and then we can sit here and go, oh, okay, that's what they were doing. So it'll be interesting to see where the dominoes fall.
What do you think's more likely? Do you think it's more likely that maybe they're looking at Roger, or Rogers maybe vocalised that he probably wants to potentially go back to rugby for the World Cup or something, or maybe it's Dallin Watene-Zelezniak? What do you think's more likely here? Who's the guy to fall for Will Warbrick?
Well, Roger's got options, doesn't he? So, he may have had a conversation. I find it a little bit telling they haven't re-signed Roger. Maybe he's having conversations in regards to see how his body holds up. He's a great player. I can't talk that bloke up enough. So maybe there is an opportunity for him to go back to Union and apply his trade there for the World Cup, which would be a massive win for the New Zealand Rugby Union.
It does make sense. He is off contract as well. So that'll be very, very interesting. Now, this is very out there, but I do want to get your thoughts before we move off. Will Warbrick to the Warriors, Roger to the Melbourne Storm?
Tell you what, that'd be a great little switch for the Melbourne Storm to have him there.
He'd be unreal at Melbourne, like unreal. Yeah. Play him on that right wing. You're going to get it from Roger Tuivasa-Sheck every single week. I think at the back end of his career, while they bring through some younger guys as well, could be a little bit of an option. But let's move off. Will Warbrick, we'll have to wait and see. I think by this time next week he'll be signed there long term. Let's get stuck in to the first game. It was the Parramatta Eels taking on the Brisbane Broncos, and this one definitely went an opposite way to what we were both thinking. Jakey, what were your thoughts on this one?
Well, the Broncos come out like an absolute rocket ship, which I thought they were going to blow the Eels off the park once I sort of seen how the game started. And to the Eels' credit, they took all the opportunities that the Broncos gave them, because the Broncos did give them plenty of opportunity to get back in the game, and the Eels took advantage of it. I thought it was a really good game for Pezzett, considering last week what happened down in Melbourne, where maybe, things didn't go his way and he couldn't really bring himself out of it. It looked like that, was going to happen again this week, but he was able, with Moses, to steer the ship for him, and as I said before, take advantage of all the opportunities that came their way.
Yep, 100%. Pezzett was definitely the man of the match for that one. I thought that him and Moses definitely looked good. We talked about last week, I think there were some good moments in what was a poor game from Parramatta against Melbourne last week. But the one try that they scored with Sean Russell, I think you brought it up, just the fact that they were playing really nice and square, and there were some good signs there from that try. We saw a lot more of that in that game, playing a lot more square, playing with a little bit more freedom as well, not too much pressure from the back rowers like we saw with the Melbourne Storm. Obviously, Joe Chan levelled Pezzett last week. Didn't see too much of that at all in this one. You thought that Jordan Ricky, especially with being a much better defensive right back rower as well, you'd think that Jordan Ricky would be all over Pezzett, but it didn't seem to be the case. And then Walsh, like for me as well, yeah, sure, Brisbane lost the game. They were very good right up until the last 15, 20 minutes. Brisbane were very, very good. I thought they really played well, took their opportunities well. Walsh definitely looked to be playing with a lot more confidence as well. He played a lot more freer, whereas Penrith probably isolated him a little bit and didn't give him enough wiggle room. He looked like he had plenty of room against the Parramatta Eels, and it was doing a lot of damage, but I am worried about him going up against the Melbourne Storm. What was your thoughts on Walsh in this one?
I thought Walsh played a very balanced game, and I mean balanced as in he made a couple errors, but he also made it up with some individual brilliance. I think he's only going to get better this year the way he did last year, but I think for a longer period of time this year when he can nullify those errors. I think he's starting to get to the stage of his game where he's still trying things out, but once he starts building some good momentum and he can, as I said before, get rid of some of the errors and those things begin to come off around him, as well as using the players that are around him, I think Brisbane, you'll see, will go for a little bit of a run if he can hit that kind of form. Also want to give a shout out to Kelmar Tuolangi. I thought he was absolutely unreal on that right edge. His first try was 5 tackle breaks in the space of 18 metres. He did a lot of tough carries, a lot of good work. And I think it made him look good and he had a lot of space because there was a lot of presence being shown to Iongi. I think he's starting to demand a little bit of off-the-ball attention now where people are actually looking to where he's going when he doesn't even have the ball.
Yeah, 100%. I think you're spot on with that. I think as well, just like even last year, him and Moses had a real good combo, but it was Kelma Tuolangi's form that sort of let him down a little bit and he was dropped to reserve grade a couple of times. This is how good Kelma Tuolangi can be. I think they've definitely got to leave him there. And even too, like Jack Williams usually plays on that edge or starts there for the start of the game and then moves into the middle. Yep. I thought Jack Williams starting in the middle and just having that presence early was so good for Parramatta. I think that you've definitely got to have Jack Williams in the middle to start games. But yeah, Kelma Tuolangi, I don't think you can move him at all. I thought he was outstanding. And then I think just before we move off this one, Payne Haas, you were certainly right about Payne Haas last week. Less minutes, more output out of him. He was great, wasn't he, through the middle?
He was, mate. And like, I'm not saying that Madge doesn't know what he's doing. I think Madge is, you look at what he's got in his trophy cabinet. The bloke is obviously a genius coach. These types of players, though, like your Payne Haas's, you can play him 80 every week, and he probably wants to play 80. You got to save him from themselves sometimes because the benefit they bring with that little 15 to 20-minute break that they can have, which is probably 10 minutes but either side of halftime, and use the halftime to really give them some oxygen in their lungs. They come out, mate, and they have the ability just through one run, an offload, some sort of tackle or saving a line break. Those things are what puts them in their positions because they actually have the energy to do it. And I guarantee you, when it's the 70th minute mark and Payne Haas has played 70 minutes, his runs aren't as destructive as if he's had that 10 to 15 minute break. In that last 10 minutes, he can be a level or a couple levels above of every other forward that's on the field. So I think that's something that I think Madge may be looking to do now moving forward, unless it's a really big game and Haas is in the zone and he wants to remain himself out there. But if I was coaching Payne Haas, I'd just be in constant communication with him going, hey, mate, how you feeling? Do you feel we're going to use you like this week? And, only Payne knows his body and, you don't want to run him into the ground too much. It's a long season.
100%. Look, let's get on to the next one. The Warriors beating the Canberra Raiders 40-6. Definitely didn't expect this scoreline. We both tipped the Wars. We were very up the wires, but yeah, 40-6 is not a scoreline that I saw coming. What about you?
Yeah, I seen the Warriors winning, probably not the way they did. I thought the Raiders had a really big game last week in the wet weather, a lot of emotion in the game, but there was patches of the game that the Raiders weren't actually too competitive in my opinion. Now, the Warriors at home, first couple of rounds, they played really good round one. Round two, same sort of thing. It was torrential rain. It's just like that flying over there. There's a little bit of the mind games like, oh, fuck, how's the crowd going to be? It's a big game tonight. Are they going to turn up? All of a sudden, mate, they come out of Cannon and the 7, Tanner Boyd. What a start to the year. And I know it's round two, but, mate, I'm really happy for that guy because he has bounced around a little bit, got a shot, then something's happened, and he's got to start the year. Like, I don't think people really understand when you're in that team round one, that means you're the first selection in any position for that club due to your preseason and what you've sort of brung to the team and the way the combinations work. So I'm really happy for Tanner Boyd. It's, as we spoke about the other week, when Metcalf comes back, it's going to be very interesting how they fit Metcalf back in the team because Tanner Boyd's 2 from 2 now, and he's playing very well.
Yeah, well, we spoke about it last week. It was exactly what I was going to bring up. He's been outstanding. Just his temperament, his kicking game, the structure, it almost fits exactly with how the Warriors want to play their football. So when Metcalf does come back, it will be really interesting to see what they decide to do. It's going to be very, very interesting.
It will be, mate. It will. It'll be interesting to see how they use him. If they have him on the bench and they sporadically bring him in for 10, 15 minutes just to get some legs and some kilometres into his legs into the game and get the speed going, or if they chuck him straight in the defense and he goes back into the starting side. It'll be interesting to see.
Well, even like that Penrith-Cogger rotation, I would have loved to have seen a little bit more of that just to get a bit of an idea as to how they were actually using him. But especially the previous week against the Broncos, they used Cogger in a bit more of a like second halfback sort of thing. We spoke about it last week. I think that would be perfect for Tanner Boyd. Late in the game, if the Warriors don't really have enough spark or they just need Metcalf to go into that attacking mode, they can bring a guy like Tanner Boyd in through the middle. I think he's got good enough to defender to handle it there as well. And then you can obviously have a guy like Metcalf who can just focus on his running game, focus on all-out attack and just go banana. So I think that could be definitely the play. And I'll tell you what, the last thing before we move off the Warriors, I think, is just their resilience. People forget they lost Chanelaris-Tavita in the first 5 minutes. They then lost Chance Nickel-Klokstad 65 minutes into the game as well. They had to play Wade Egan at 6 and they moved Sam Healy to 9. Their resilience in this one was massive. The fact that they were so on top that they weren't going to let 2 key spine men being injured affect how they were going to play their game of football. Tanner Boyd, a big part of that. But I think also Fish, Ford, and Aaron Clark need to give a big round of applause to those middles. They kept the intensity 100. That Warriors had excuses to drop that lead or at least to let the Raiders score a couple more points or just not have the same attack as what they did before with a couple of injuries there in their spine. But they chose to just go after the game. And Fish, Ford, and Aaron Clark for me. And then also Leka Halasima as well on that left edge. All those guys outstanding.
Mate, it shows care for the jersey and for each other. To lose those 2 types of players in your spine during the game and you still turn up, the big things are happening over in the Warriors.
100%. Look, Raiders, it's not often the Raiders get out-muscled, mate. It's not often that they get out-muscled through the middle of the field. You've got Tarpanay there. You've got big Corey Horsburgh who had an outstanding game last week. You've got some pretty solid middle forwards there at the Raiders. They're not short of middles. But for them to be out-muscled there and then there wasn't really a plan B, their wingers were working overtime as well. They both had 184 metres each. So they were getting plenty of ascendancy on those play 1 and 2 carries. But when it came to the middles actually getting in and getting into that hard stuff later in the tackle count and providing that momentum for their halves to create, it just wasn't there. Morgan Smithies, 3 runs, 29 metres. Tarpanay, 13 runs, 118 metres. He was trying to get through a ton of work. He played 54 minutes. But even like the missed tackles as well, 7 missed tackles from Tom Starling. Yeah, look, it's not the Raiders' performance where typical to see them getting out-muscled and then their defense to go a little bit wayward as well.
Correct. It was probably, like, if you look too, the Raiders scored in the 4th minute of the game. So they might have thought, how good is this? We've come out, we've started flying. This will just sort of work out for us. And it didn't end up going that way for them. We also, I want to give a massive rap to Jackson Ford because I've seen today he's actually leading the Daily M Awards.
Yeah, wow.
He, this isn't to take anything away from Jackson Ford, but to be at the top of that leaderboard with this, he's not like the top dog, in the forward pack for the Warriors. If you can, Fisher Harris is obviously that guy, but it shows what kind of a player and how he's actually playing this year. Like to lead, I'm pretty sure he's on 12 and the next closest to him is 8. Is that correct?
Look, I haven't actually seen it. So you've got,
Mate, it's an like, even though he has an opportunity to win it, but to lead it this early in the year and, seeing how he goes for the rest of the year, that just shows what type of a forward he is and how well he's playing at this time of his career.
Yeah, Dally M. So you're right. Jackson Ford on 12 points. You got Dylan Edwards on 9, Dylan Brown on 8,
Yep.
Harry Grant, Isaiah Yeo, Nathan Cleary, and Sua Falongo on 7. So,
Good on him.
yeah, wow. To be up by that much as well, that's huge. Really good player, Jackson Ford. And I feel like as well, like we're talking a lot about James Fisher-Harris, and a lot of the media attention has gone to Fisher-Harris and being that alpha in the pack. And, he did very well in this game. But, Jackson Ford's playing 80 minutes a week. He's playing 80 minutes as a front rower, which is insane. People obviously look at Terrell May, they look at Payne Haas, they look at a bunch of other front rowers that are doing it in the game, and they think it's just commonplace now. For a guy like Jackson Ford, who wasn't really playing NRL week to week, like two and a half years ago at the Dragons, comes over to the Warriors as a bit of a fringy back rower, and then now he's one of the better front rowers form-wise in the game, leading the Dally M's. It's outstanding. So big shout out to Jackson Ford.
He's almost like that modern day hybrid prop, isn't it? Like where he's not that, 110, 115 kilo sort of front rower. He sits around that 100 to 105, can push out his 80 minutes. And he just gets the job done week in, week out. So as I said before, great, good on him, mate. And I hope he wins the Daily. I hope he wins the Daily M. That'd be unreal.
That's crazy. I think Jason Taumalolo did it. But like, there wouldn't be too many front rowers that have won the Dally M other than Taumalolo.
No, I can't. Not off the top of my. I can't believe Payne Haas hasn't won one yet. That baffles me.
He'll be close. Him and Jackson Ford going head to head there. 26-18. The Roosters beating the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Look, touching on the Roosters first, solid. I mean, it wasn't the greatest of games. Obviously, there was a lot of speculation going in with Alex Johnston breaking the record, and I mean, I tell you what, the scenes at Allianz Stadium were unbelievable. But I'd have concerns for both sides probably coming out of this one. But what were your thoughts on Alex Johnston breaking the record, the scenes at Allianz Stadium, everyone storming the field?
Mate, I thought it was great. I can't believe they said they were going to fine people for running on the field, mate. Like, just let it happen. Like, you know what I mean? I understand player safety. I understand crowd safety and the people there working for Channel 9 and Fox. I understand all that. But, mate, as Australians, history in sport's massive for us, and to see this happen on a massive game, which is, the rivalry between the Roosters and the Rabbits. What perfect timing. The bloke scored in the first half to equal it, and then, in the second half, was it? Just after second half started, he got his next try. So good on him. I'm stoked for him. Like those sort of records don't get broken, and obviously, it lasted 57 years. They were saying 57 years since it had been broken, and his name's now put in the history books until someone comes along and beats that. And the thing is too, he's probably missed maybe in between 20 to 40 games through injury in his career.
Yeah.
So he maybe have got it. He could have got it a little bit earlier. You know what I mean? So like, there's all these little factors, and he eventually got there. Obviously, there was that the Rabbitohs weren't going to re-sign him, and he ended up re-signing. Like, there's all these little things that he's had to go through his career, and to come out on top and do what he's done, not only for himself and his family, but also for that club who also showed faith in him, and he stuck around. Good on him, mate.
I'll tell you what, he's a bit of an exclusive. When Wayne was at the club the first time around, he was actually being shopped to other clubs, and he had an agreed deal with Melbourne to go over there. He was pretty much locked in to go to the Storm. Backflipped. They kept him around. Obviously, when Demetrio was there, he re-signed. And yeah, like he's gone through a bunch of trials and tribulations. He's gone through a ton of injuries, and it's just so awesome to see him to get that record, to do it through 40 odd games with injury as well is just insane. So shout out to Alex Johnston. Got a statue as well out the front of the training facility at Heffron. So
does he really?
Yeah. Yep.
That's unreal.
Yeah. So good. So good.
Uh,
So, congratulations to Alex Johnston. But look, as I was sort of alluding to at the start, not the best quality game from both sides, really. Both sides had their errors. Both sides just lost a bit of discipline there at stages. What were your thoughts on the game overall?
Yeah, it was a really entertaining game in patches, and obviously, as we just spoke about, Johnston sealing the deal with the record was the thing that brought a lot of attention to the game. I think it held probably a little bit too much emotion in the game, and maybe the teams were a little bit worrying about other things outside of footy. Also, too, Angus Crichton played his 200th game of first grade. I don't think that got talked up enough as well. I think that's a massive feat, especially for a forward, and what sort of he's gone through in his career. Which is cutting his finger off to remain a professional athlete. You want to talk about sacrifice. So he's obviously going to rugby union at the end of the year. So it was a massive win for the Roosters, and I'm glad that he got to celebrate his 200th game with the win. I think the Rabbitohs will bounce back. I think what people say things like this doesn't affect the group in a positive way or over an emotional way. Now it's done. They can get back onto the, back to their season. And I've got no doubt they'll come out if they're playing this weekend and don't have the bye. And I think you'll see a different Rabbitohs team, and one that starts to build a little bit more momentum going into the season.
100%. Look, I agree. I think that the Rabbitohs will sort of turn things around and come back from this. I think that, as you said, there was a bit of a tension in the Alex Johnston record, and once the record was broken, they still tried to go his way quite a bit. They still tried to force it left. With Latrell and Dave Fafita obviously there as well. Like, when things weren't happening for the Rabbitohs, they just flinged it to Latrell, they flinged it to Dave Fafita, and it actually led to a couple of errors. I think Latrell had 4 or 5 errors by the end of the game. Because they were just constantly just trying to get the ball to him, even when he wasn't expecting it or sort of didn't want it as well. I think that they'll definitely be improved. I think they've definitely got to utilise that right edge as well. We spoke about it after the Manly trial. That right edge for South Sydney is just as dangerous. If you can obviously draw so much attention to the left-hand side, especially after this game where they've overutilised it, going into the next one, then you can obviously have a lot of joy down the right-hand side as well, because even though Stretch has had some good games, he had a really good game against the Dolphins, not many people are going to expect you to fake left and go right, especially with how strong that left edge is. Dave Fafita still got 200-odd metres in this game.
Yeah.
So it's definitely the strike edge for the Rabbitohs, but definitely got to utilise that right edge a bit more, don't you think?
Yeah, I do. I think, obviously the left-hand side of the field is full of class, but you don't want to keep revving the engine and, going there the whole time and expecting it to work every single time. I think the way that I would use what arsenal that the Rabbitohs do have is look to build momentum through that middle and right edge of the field. And if they want to shift the ball to the left when the defensive lines is a little bit at 6s and 7s, then shift the ball to them when they get the ball in Latrell's hands when they're in a little bit of disarray. If they keep going there, because teams are going to keep stacking that side of the field if it's clear that they're just going to take that shot there, or begin to use David Fafita as the wrecking ball and, get the left-hand side of the field of defense on the other team at 6s and 7s and use Jack White and use the right-hand side of the field. There's a lot of talent on the right-hand side of the field, so it'll be interesting to see how they begin to use that and where they want to move the ball. Because, as I said, it's good to get the ball to Latrell, but also Latrell needs to get the ball in positions and have the defensive line in different, sort of breakdowns to be able to do what he does so well.
Yeah, 100%. Well, look, it'll be interesting to see how South Sydney play and if they do bounce back from this one. Let's move on to the next one, which was the Tigers. Mate, huge win from the West Tigers against the North Queensland Cowboys. Talk to me, mate. What were your initial thoughts? Who were your standouts in this one?
Mate, I thought it was going to go this way. The Tigers playing at the 8th one of the world in Leichhardt. As you can see, the hill is always packed, mate. It looks like people were there, as soon as the gate opened, ready to rumble. I actually thought I thought Happy Coruscant was really good. He probably didn't get, the raps or wasn't in the two bigger plays, but if you actually watch what he done on the footy field, I thought he was massive in steering around the team. I think KPP was outstanding. I thought that when the Tigers said they bought him last year, I thought to myself, that back row now with Finau and Pierce Paul, in 11 and 12, That's two long, rangy back rowers either side of the field who can hit a line, can create an offload, and are very, very solid in defence. So I think they've found some really good balance on their edges, and obviously they've got some great centre pairing that come out on the weekend. But obviously Talon May got injured, and then my man Makasini in the centres as well, which I'm looking forward to seeing him grow.
Yeah, well, interesting, right? Obviously played really well on the left wing for them, and then came in to play right centre, or left centre, sorry. Killed it. I thought he went well moving one in. I thought that he was destructive. We got a taste of him in the centres in the trials as well, where I thought he went quite well against the Roosters. But this one, for me, it's good for him to show that versatility. I'd probably prefer him on the left wing, and I think that with Skelton back now and that Talon May injury, they might make a couple of moves and get him back out to the wing. I think Stafford Toa's set to come back as well very soon, so that'll see a bit of movement there. But as you said, mate, really good depth, but really good just balance on both of those edges as well. And if they can start to build a bit of consistency with their selections, Talon May comes back and they start to put this side together a little bit, it's a very dangerous outfit. The main I want to touch on, though, is Adam Doueihi.
Just about to say. Okay.
Yeah, Adam Doueihi was outstanding. Like, for him to came through fullback, centre, obviously played a little bit of half, but for him to put that number 7 jersey on with so much confidence, kicks really, really well, creates really, really well, has a really nice dynamic with Jerome Luai and frees him up just as much as he needs to as well. Adam Doueihi has been outstanding to start the year, mate. He's probably been the unsung hero of this Tigers side and probably the year as well. The Dalians aren't probably giving Adam Doueihi as much credit as he probably deserves.
Mate, he looks very confident and comfortable, doesn't he? It looks like Benji's probably said to him, mate, you're going to be the 7. Here's the jersey. Go out there and play your game. Because he, as you said, he was playing centre, 6, 13, coming off the bench as an impact player. But now to wear that Tigers 7, start the season, come out and orchestrate 44 points, obviously with the whole team. But he's the 7, so he takes the wins and losses on his shoulder. That's massive, and I'm really happy for him. He's also just re-signed for 2 or 3 years, I've seen as well. So to see, is it 3 or 4 ACL injuries he's had in his career so far?
3 back to back.
And then you see now this grown man own a number 7 jersey in a first grade rugby league team and go out there. And I know it's one game. I always have to reiterate that, but I think he has the capabilities to build a really strong season with Luai. And they take the Tigers into the finals this year. What a story that is. And I just want to say one more thing. I seen Halumi Luki make a tackle on Makasini on the weekend. Makasini was bigger than him, and I know how big Luki is. So he must be sitting 6'4" Makasini, and thick as anything. It's scary.
He's strong. He bumped off Dylan Edwards in that trial as well.
Yeah. Who was tackling him in under 18s? Like, seriously.
I don't know, but he's certainly built for it. He's been outstanding. That young kid, Luke Laulili, as well on the left wing.
Yes.
He played well. A couple of errors there, unfortunately, just on their spreads, but he's usually a fullback too. Doesn't usually play wing, so he just slotted in there, did a job. I thought that he was very dangerous when he attacked, scored 2 tries, looked quite good. Yep. Jakey.
Yeah, mate, he's strong. And if he is a fullback, as his first choice and he's actually been able to play himself onto the wing, I think that's a massive rap to him as well, because obviously different positions, but to put your hand up and take those hit-ups out of yardage shows, the willingness to want to be on the field and be a part of the team no matter where he's playing. He also got 2 tries. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah, scored 2 tries.
Good on him.
The one thing I want to say for the Cowboys before we move off, the moment that summed up the whole game for me, it was Adam Doueihi's try. He had 3 front rowers on him, and he's able to push himself forward 5 meters and slam the ball down on the try line.
It didn't look good, did it?
It just shows a lack of effort. It shows a lack of effort. Like, if you've got 3 front rowers on you and you're a halfback, they should be dragging you back 10 meters, not being able to be pushed forward 5. For Adam Doueihi to slam the ball down, albeit Adam Doueihi, big body, and I'm sure is very, very strong through the legs.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like, I think I'm not going to name and shame because I don't know the exact players there, but you've got to turn that around. It's pretty poor, and, like, I've thrown up my spoon prediction for the Cowboys this year. I think they'll get the spoon. That just shows me that they'll play their way into a spoon if they play like that. Let's just say that.
Yeah, they're probably, with that effort, they've got to show a little bit more want, and hopefully they can turn that around this week. I've got no doubt that will probably be brought up in the video session. I just want to say one more thing before we go to the next game. Scott Drinkwater playing with needles and rib cartilage.
Yep.
That I don't think people understand. Like, even just moving your body an inch with rib cartilage damage, let alone needling it up to go and play football, a game of rugby league and first grade rugby league in Australia. Mate, my hat tips to him, because that's one tough hombre to go out in the field and do that.
Totally. 100%. If he didn't look very comfortable out there as well. It's the early rounds. Like, I don't understand why they wouldn't have just rested him and brought someone else in to play a game or so at fullback while he recovers. Like, it's the early rounds. It makes the most sense.
Those things, mate, they don't recover. Like, you'll play that for the whole year. You can give 8 weeks off as soon as you get twisted in that certain way, and there's a little bit of force, and they go again, mate. So he's just going to have to play with that the whole year. It's like when you hurt your AC joint as well. They don't go away until you can fully not have to do anything. I'd almost bet he's not lifting weights during the week. You can't do anything with rib cartilage. It sucks.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's definitely going to be a watch for Cowboys fans. Mate, your Dragons, they went down 46-20 against the Melbourne Storm. But I'll tell you what, like, if you're a Dragons fan, you've got to be proud of that first 60 minutes and the effort that the Dragons showed through the middle of the field, especially.
Mate, they were with them. And I'll debate anyone with that. I'm not just saying that because I played for them and I'm biased towards the club, because I have, obviously a strong feeling towards them. But they were with them. And the thing that happened was there was 6 or 7 ends to sets that just gave Melbourne field position, and you can't do that to a team like Melbourne. And that was the actual factor, in my opinion, that turned the game. And the Melbourne Storm were able to go, try on 62nd, 65th, 69, 74, and 79. Like that last 20 minutes, it just looked like all those errors that compounded, and Melbourne just went, rightio, we've had enough here. We're in field position. We need to put the foot on the throat, and they did that, and the boys just couldn't hold on anymore. But I tip my hat to the effort, and I truly do think they'll win more games than they did last year with the effort, if they can create that icing on their fifth tackle options.
100%. 100%. Look, I think that they'll definitely learn from this game. I think they'll take a little bit of confidence out of the fact that they were able to level with Melbourne Storm, especially through the middle of the field for the opening 60 minutes there. Obviously putting on points as well with a rookie halfback going up against one of the prime spines in the competition too.
Yep.
Atkinson, I thought some of his movements, especially I think it was the second Val Holmes try, steps back in, goes to that little mini gap and then throws that cut out to Val. Some outstanding movements. So I'd take a lot of confidence for Daniel Atkinson, to be fair, out of this game if I'm the Dragons.
Yeah, mate, that's almost like a touch player. Like, he got the ball going sideways, seen that there was the overlap, straightened up, and if you have a look, the 2 defenders in front of him actually stopped and had to watch him because they stopped going across field. The winger had already jammed in. He was 20 metres infield, and he's just thrown this pass that was a little bit wonky, still had enough spin and height to get over the top and hit Val Holmes on the chest. That to me shows, he's getting better and better each week. He's starting to get confidence and play a little bit of natural rugby league that he actually has in him. So the instinct overrided there, and I'm very happy for him. The thing that I noticed with the Dragons too, which I think was good, the 6 was passing to the 7 on the shifts, and the 7 was passing to the 6. They were entwining really well. And when they did shift the ball, they'd have the back rower leading for the centre. And that's what was able to get 1 or 2 tries, because Big Christian did score on the other corner as well off a great shift.
100%. So there's a lot more connectivity than there have been in the previous week from between the spine. But even with Atkinson, like you were talking about, him just playing a little bit more instinctive and seeing things. Like, for me, he's just starting to see those halfback cues. He's just starting to see those cues in the defence, starting to pick little things up as well. People forget he's very new to the position. He's very new to that number 7 role, played fullback coming through, mostly fullback in New South Wales Cup at the Sharks, and then came in at 6 at stages and in a bit of utility roaming role. So for him to grab that number 7 jersey and to get those cues by round 2, or at least start to get an understanding of those cues, I'd be really happy about that as a Dragons fan for sure.
100%. Well, you got to think he's played halfback in the Charity Shield, round one, he went better in round one than the Charity Shield. Now he's gone better than he did in round one in round two. So he's showing he's getting better. He just needs to ice those fifth tackle options as well as Flanagan. And Damien Cook got out and kicked the ball out in the full as well, So they've got to take a little bit of ownership this week, and hopefully they can, rectify those errors and not do them this weekend. And I think they can get the chocolates with whoever they're playing against.
Last thing on the Dragons, mate, is Ryan Couchman. Got to give this young bloke a shout out. Coming back from an ACL injury from last year, there was conjecture as to if he was going to be included in the 17 because they've just got so much depth through the middle of the field. Comes off the bench. He has 142 metres off 12 carries, 54 post-contact, 4 tackle bus, 38 tackles. Played 57 minutes in the middle as a young kid coming back off an ACL. Like, the amount of faith that Shane Flanagan has in him, but just the effort areas there from Ryan Couchman. Like, you'd expect that from Toby, who played footy last year, and Ryan's come out and done incredibly well.
They're in tandem because, they both do that. They have the potential to do that every week, depending on, what sort of minutes they get. And that's your role, mate. If you're coming off the bench, off the pine, you're supposed to bring impact and energy, and when those other blokes are having the rest that started the game, and you got to up it again in the notch. That's the role of a bench player. Like, people may look at bench players and go, "Oh, they're just there." No, mate. Like, you got to go up there and up it. You can't just stay at the same level as the start of the game. You got to take the intensity to the next level and finish the half off. And that's what he did. The biggest thing is the 1%ers. You watch him, mate. He's drifting in defense, getting into A. He's up quick off the deck when he's third man in. He actually has a bit of ball playing as well. And they're not the biggest middles. But if you watch them, mate, they've got this nice little subtle shoulder movement. They know how to use their body well with a little bit of a late foot jink, and they do find their front a lot.
Yeah, 100%. Mate, Melbourne Storm, just quickly. Suafalongo, obviously, you talked about that last little bit of play there for the Melbourne Storm, the last 20 minutes. 3 tries. He finished the game with 160 run meters, 3 line breaks, 2 line break assists, 10 tackle bus. Mate.
Yeah, it's a big 20 minutes. Like, it's very, very strong. Like, he looks like, we were just talking about Atkinson, he's starting to have a little bit of his own natural ability coming into the game through confidence now, because he knows he has that number 1 jersey to begin to play, right? I was watching the Storm. The Storm, it's not like the Storm weren't playing bad. The Dragons were actually just meeting them where they were at. They just played a higher level of rugby league for a longer period of time and took advantage of the situations that the Dragons allowed them to have. You can't do that, especially with the spark like Fa'alongo. Like, the try that he scored down the right-hand side on the 5th tackle, Harry Grant looked open, right? I was watching the ruck. Harry Grant, they were going left. He looked and seen the amount of space, and Fa'alongo was there on the right-hand side. I didn't know if it was pre-planned, and just threw him the ball, and he hit that nice goosey, showed out, and scored the try. But his speed off the mark, it's like Sonic the Hedgehog. The bloke takes 1 step, it's like his first step's 4 meters. It just goes bang like that. So I don't think it's going to be the last time we see him score a hat-trick, and he's going to start getting the ball more because he is a magnificent strike weapon.
Who does Suafalongo remind you of? Like, anyone from your playing?
Preston Campbell.
Yeah.
A faster Preston Campbell, mate. It's obviously playing fullback, but he reminds me of Preston Campbell.
Okay, yeah, it's a good shout. It is a good shout. He moves so well, really great footwork, super dynamic. I think that he's in for a huge year. He's in for a huge year. Mate, tell you what, speaking of blokes that are in for big years, Stefano's come out with an absolute vengeance. After the grand final, after he was talking all the smack, he's come out with an absolute vengeance in this one. He looks like he is going to tear blokes limb from limb.
He's come out very physical, hasn't he? It looks like he's taken a little bit of more of a leadership role, and I think he's in tandem really well with Josh King at the moment. Josh King is a very, very good forward, even though he doesn't get the headlines as everyone probably else does down at the Melbourne Storm because he's surrounded so many good players. But it looks like those two have a little bit of a 1-2 punch going on at the moment, which is going to set them up really, really good for the rest of the year.
Mate, let me just read you out this stat line. 18 runs, 175 run meters, 62 post contact, 9 tackle bus. He had 27 tackles, 0 missed.
Oh.
And that was in 60 minutes.
That's a good stint, mate. 60 minutes got used perfectly. He got a break, and he was able to, notch up those carries and really focus on his defense.
He was huge. Look, decent performance from the Melbourne Storm. I thought the Dragons, there's definitely more positive to take out of them. Obviously levelling it with the side that's come out really strong in the Melbourne Storm this year. Penrith Sharks, not too much to talk about here. Penrith did very, very well. I'm a bit concerned about the Sharks. I'm more concerned about Nicho Hynes because the big thing that I took out of this game from Hynes is that he turned into a passenger when the Sharks needed him to come into this game and put on points and set up opportunities. He just sort of sat back behind the ruck and let Trindle do all the work. And that's not what I really want to see from Hynes.
Parramatta. Penrith have this ability to suffocate halfbacks, though. So I don't know if he felt a little bit of that. I still think Nicho Hynes is one of the prime halves in the competition. But when you come up against teams like Penrith and Melbourne as examples, their whole week is wrapped around how do we stop their best players. Sometimes it works and sometimes they really take them players out of the game, as we've seen with Reece Walsh possibly for the Broncos in round one with Penrith. And it looks like they did that with Nicho this week. And he probably did rely, and the team did rely a little bit more on Trindle instead of other players coming along to the parties also.
Guess how many tackles the Panthers made Nicho make in that game?
I want to say 33.
32. They hammered him back.
That's what middles make. You know what I mean? So they've obviously had a target on him to go at him in the game, and it worked for him.
Yeah, he had 15 tackles at halftime too, so they were going after him.
Yep.
Even Trindle, mate, like with the attack there in the last 20 odd minutes when they were chasing points, like it was just unders ball when they got into good ball. It was just unders, and then try and go for a repeat set. Like it didn't.
It didn't look like they had plan B. That's what I sort of noticed. I noticed they fell into their shape really well, but it was just defended so good by Penrith, and it looked like they didn't have that next second or third shape option to go into to be able to go, okay, well, they're doing this here. Let's maybe do this and see what we can come up with. Would that be a fair statement?
I think so, but I also think as well, like I almost feel like Trindle was trying to square up their attack, or at least square up their line in the plan that at play 4, play 3, Hynes was going to go right and take them.
Yeah.
There's even a few times where Brayley looked like he was faking right, but he was actually waiting for Nicho, and Nicho was behind the ruck. And he goes, oh, shit, and he has to go back to the left and go to Trindle, and Trindle has to make something. So it almost seemed like they were preparing to get to tackle 3 or 4 and get Hynes good ball or get him a bit of space to set up something on the right side with Nikora, who's a real good line runner, and sort of guys. Raymond was having a good game in the first 15, 20 odd minutes. Like it seemed like they were trying to set up something, and Hynes just sort of set at the back and was like, nah, not doing it. Or at least he just got so worked by the defensive load and just, didn't have the energy to take them on those raids.
Well, as a footy team, you sort of want to have these losses that, these bigger ones where you sort of get your pants pulled down a little bit at the start of the year so you can actually rectify the problems, because they will play Penrith again if they go into finals and maybe once more during the year. So that'll give them an opportunity to go back and look where they could be better and where Penrith sort of went at. Obviously, they did attack their halves defensively, and maybe, they can begin to make some, plans on the run to have a look at what Penrith were actually doing and see how they can, battle that the next time they play each other.
100%. Look, I guess the positive for me from the Sharks was Jesse Colquhoun. I'm a big Jesse Colquhoun fan, the 13 there for the Cronulla Sharks. Got through 42 tackles, only one missed there. Played 53 minutes in this game, 113 metres through the middle, 46 post-contact, sorry. I thought he was outstanding. He was probably one of the only forward, other than Adam Fanua-Blake, who had some nice moments. It was probably the only forward there that actually took it to Penrith and was breaking tackles, and then defensively as well was putting a bit of sting in those tackles too.
Yeah, he's the young front row, isn't he, coming back off 1 or 2 injuries? Yeah, I think, mate, he's only going to get better as the year goes on, but I think we're starting to see also how much of a big loss Cam McInnes is for this Sharks team. Like he's that guy that steadies the ship. He's that guy that gives you, 40 to 50 tackles, and I think Jesse is in there doing his role at the moment at 13, but I think when Cam McInnes comes back and is fit, you'll see him take that 13 spot, and then they'll be able to use Jesse as a sort of impact player, or if they decide to keep him there, and Cam McInnes takes that impact playing role. So it's going to be interesting, but I think the Sharks are missing Cam McInnes at the moment also.
Do you think Cam McInnes could sort of go in a bit of a Dylan Walker type role? Like he could come on in that 14 jersey, leg speed, ball playing, that sort of role?
I 100% agree with you. I think he could. My thing is with Cam McInnes, you want him starting with you. You want him out there from the first blow of the whistle because you know what you're going to get. You don't, you know what you're going to get if he's going to be an impact player. But when he runs out the tunnel and he's in that 1 to 13, that's all I want with me.
100%. For the Panthers, mate, Nathan Cleary for me. I thought it was a huge game from Klez. Good kicking. I thought that he just kept them guessing quite a few times. Had some really, really nice kicking options, a couple of forced dropouts. Kicked a 40-20 in this one as well, but then a few nice cross kicks for Tom Jenkins where even though Tom Jenkins wasn't getting them 100% of the time, it was still keeping Cronulla guessing. And, Tom Jenkins still got 2 tries. He got his chocolates a couple of times. So Jenkins for me was probably a bit of a standout. But even Brian Toto, mate, like out of yardage,
yeah,
this is the best game I've seen from Brian Toto in about, it's been a minute. It feels like Brian Toto's sort of taking a little bit of a step back, or maybe he's suffered a bit of that fatigue from going to finals a couple of years in a row.
Yeah.
He looks unreal to start this season.
We're just with Cleary, it honestly looks like he's gotten better. Like in like little minuscule aspects of his game, just, which is hard to say because he looks like the complete player already. It just looks like he's dictating how the actual game's played. Like that's my opinion. Some of the things he does, it's like when he does it, you're like, oh, I understand why he did that because there's so much intent and emphasis on the way that he plays and how he wants the Panthers to play and win the game. But to jump back into what you were saying, the 2 outside backs, Toto and Jenkins. What about Jenkins? I still can't get over that story. That's the best thing. That's just dedication to your craft and wanting to play rugby league. And he's honestly, like, I don't know if he will play Origin, but he's playing like a rep player. Like he is turning up he's scoring his tries, taking his runs from yardage. He's solid in defense, and now you've got Toto sort of looking maybe and going, oh, well, you know what? I'm gonna challenge myself to be better than my teammate now because I'm the rep player. I'm the guy that's doing all these things. So I want to start bringing a little bit of attention back to myself maybe, So it's good to have that healthy competition within your team.
I tell you who's probably hyping up a couple of the boys as well, just with how he's playing, Casey McLean.
Oh, genius.
Mate, he is unbelievable. What about, did you see the little rubber kick that he put in for that forced dropout that he got as well? The trapped, I think it was Sione Katoa in goal, and Katoa was having a pretty good game as well. Puts a little grubber kick down the left-hand side and then makes the tackle himself and drags him into the in goal.
Mate, how good does it look when players start doing natural ability stuff? Like they just back themselves and they get in these opportunities and they get in these sort of things on the field where they're like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. Maybe I did an SG ball that I've been a little bit afraid of doing first grade, but now I'm going to start bringing my confidence into this. And I think that's what we're starting to see with a couple of players. We'll mention it before with Firelongo at Melbourne. Casey McLean, I've called it. Daily M Centre of the Year if he remains healthy. I think he's just going to get better and better. And the more times they present, good opportunities for him, he's going to do things and set tries up and create opportunities for the players around him because of the skills he possesses.
100%. Look, we'll get to the Sunday games. This was an absolute poo slinger. Manly taking on the Newcastle Knights. Definitely not a fun game to watch. 36-16, the final scoreline. I am very concerned for the Manly Seagulls after watching that. For the Knights to lose KP and Dylan Brown, and for you guys not to hype yourselves up and try and fight for a win, like, I don't know who I'm more concerned for, the Cowboys or the Manly Seagulls, because they both were very poor in this round.
It was hard to know that Ponga and Brown went off and Manly couldn't get the energy or the confidence to go over the top of the Knights. But then I want to flip the coin also and go, well done to the Knights for turning up and continuing on and winning the game away from home. Like, they're not known for their big wins away from home, the Knights. They're known for turning up at home and getting those big scores. So I think they'll get a lot of confidence out of that. It depends what they can do now moving forward, as Brown is stated to be out for 4 weeks and Caleb Pong anywhere from 6 to 8. But they do have some really good fill-in players Fletcher Hunt now gets an opportunity at fullback. Sandon Smith now comes straight into the half spot. So it's obviously they do lose a little bit with those key players out, but these guys coming in now, the opportunity's there, and I've got no doubt they'll want to keep or be in contention for that 1 to 17 or 1 to 20. No, is it 19 squad now?
19,
It's 6
yep,
people.
19,
You
yep.
know what I mean? Like that, they still want to be involved in that, because the best thing about first grade besides playing is when you're winning. If you're a part of winning, that gives you, that little bit of bounce in your step, and all of a sudden that training's a little bit different. Everyone's a bit happier. The music sounds a little bit better. The food tastes a little bit better, and everyone's playing, and the club's humming. And in Newcastle, when Newcastle's going well, the NRL's going well, because that town is all about rugby league.
They do get Fletcher Sharp back next week as well, which will be a huge in. They should get him back this week. They were reporting on Fox League, so they'll get that one addition there. But if they can play this good without Ponga and with Dill Brown, it's some positive signs, to be fair. I'm really keen. They do have a very tough draw coming up, which we'll get to in a second. The question I want to ask you first, how many games do you reckon the Knights have won at Four Pines Park in their history?
Since it was called for 4 Pines?
Just at that ground.
At that oval? I'm going to say 9.
That was their 4th.
No way.
Yeah.
I was going back to like the 90s too.
Yeah.
So they've only won.
Yeah, they've only won 4 in their history. Yeah, it's crazy.
That's a good stat, that.
It is. It's very, very good. So, it's a craze that the Newcastle were able to grab the win here. Credit to them and credit to their performances. Sandon Smith, you brought up, mate. He was outstanding, wasn't he?
Yeah. Well, and two, I want to give that Sandon Smith a rap. Like he had every right to kick stones, that bloke. But he turned up, played 14 role last in Las Vegas. Did a very solid job over there. He's bought his time. He's got the opportunity now. And I got no doubt when he was out in the field, he was like, righty, I'm going to have this for a little, at least a month now. I want to make sure that I can steer the team to a win, and that gives us momentum, and it gives me confidence moving forward, and gives the boys confidence that I can come in and actually play this role now. Now his opportunity's there, and good on him for the professionalism he's shown.
Yeah, 100% agree. Bradman Best as well. Geez, didn't he stand up with a couple of stars off the field? 2 try assists, 190 metres from only 16 carries, 58 post contact, 5 tackle busts. Good defensively, kicked a fusel in there as well for Bradman Best. Good performance from him, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's strong origin performance, isn't it? He's capable of almost anything on the rugby league field when he gets himself together, Bradman Best. He's got all the capabilities. Now I hope he can back it up and do it for 2, 3, 4 rounds, because that's what the Knights are going to need from him, with obviously Brown and Ponga out.
Totally. Trey Mooney as well through the middle of the field there for Newcastle. Isn't he a good purchase from Canberra?
Mate, he's been outstanding for him. Again, another person that's got the opportunity to start in a first-grade rugby league team is taken with both hands.
Yeah, 100%. Just touching on the Knights draw, they have got the Warriors, the Bulldogs, the Raiders, Tigers. It's actually not that bad, to be fair. Oh, then they've got Roosters, Penrith. So
it's a solid 6 weeks there, or 5, 6 weeks.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they go next week against the Warriors side. That's pretty fired up at the moment. They've got 2 wins now for the year as well.
Are they playing the Warriors over in Newcastle?
Yeah, it's at McDonald Jones Stadium.
There we go. Let's wait and see.
That's a good game. Where did it go wrong for Manly? What were your thoughts?
I don't think they turned up.
Yeah.
Like I strongly don't like doing, when I'm a part of podcasts, bragging on teams and people and all that sort of stuff. I just like to give my opinion on the view that I've seen, but it's very hard to say where they went well. It looked like they were a little bit, just ghost-faced it, in my opinion.
Yeah, look, the only thing I wanted to bring up about Manly, because I think it was a tough performance and not too much to talk about for them. They simply, as you said, just didn't turn up. Jake Trbojevic, his minutes, he's going to play way less minutes in this side. I love Jake Trbojevic. He's given so much service to the jersey, but he cannot play 60 minutes at lock forward. Like, they've got to have someone that's a little bit more mobile in there, like a Hetherington or someone else that can play that role, have a bit of ball playing. It suits their attacking style of play that they want to go for. Gerbo, for me, is now a middle in this side. He's a front rower. He's going to be a part of that front row rotation. He plays 45-odd minutes through the middle. I cannot see a world where the Manly Seagulls continue to use Gerbo for 60 minutes at lock or even longer, and it's sustainable for him as well and for his footy career.
It's a tough one, mate, because he's furniture over there in Manly. You know what I mean? So I understand why maybe he's getting that amount of minutes, but you also got to look at, if you're the coach in Seabolt, you got to say, well, it's going to be my job if I don't start making some changes early on, because they did, even round one, they did come out of a cannon, but when Canberra started switching their gears, it looked like they just sort of fell off a cliff, and, they're sort of taking that into this week. And as we spoke about before, when you see the starting six and the fullback, who are arguably both their best players go off the field, and you can't get together to put a win together at home, it's very hard.
It is, mate. It is. The last Sunday game, Dolphins and Titans. We talk about poo slingers. This was certainly that as well. Not too much to talk about here for both sides. It's just really disappointing that the Titans gave up a lead after they were 14-0 up.
Yeah, they work so hard to get themselves in a position to win the game, and then, the Dolphins crawled their way back into the game, and then some individual brilliance by the hammer off a kick off Katoa to get up and out-jump Kinney to score that try, which was obviously the last try of the game. Good luck to the Dolphins for getting the win, but, there's got to be some massive improvements from both teams moving forward if they want to, have a run and try and put themselves in the finals.
For me, for the Dolphins, it's probably their defense. Like, their defense in the middle is shocking. That Cooper Bye try, where Cooper Bye just runs straight through the middle of them on their line.
Yeah.
Warren Keeley was on his knees. Like, you've got to be so much more alert and better than that defensively on your line. For him to just walk straight through there, Cooper Bye, didn't even have to palm anyone off and just walks over to the try line. I think defense is their biggest issue. And we talked about the middle defense as well last week when they versed South Sydney, because remember we were talking about Peter Mamo and his scoots and Jai Gray scooting into dummy half, dummying and going straight up the middle.
Yeah.
It's this cut and paste here, but on their try line. So their middle defense definitely needs to be improved in and around the ruck. Not going to be calling anyone out in particular, but maybe Brad Schneider at 9. I just feel like defensively he's more of a halfback. Defending there in the middle, it's not really working out for them. Hopefully they get Jeremy Marshall-King back sooner rather than later, or they play Max Plath a few more minutes in that 9 role, because they just need a bit of surety in that middle.
Yeah, Marshall-King will be a massive in for him. I think the Dolphins will get better and better and better as the year goes on. Remember, they're top 20 players in their roster. It looks like this is the first time they've actually been able to play together since they've all been signed to the club. So I think they're still trying to mesh a little bit. Obviously, they probably lowered themselves into how the Titans played on the weekend, but they ended up being good enough, and plus individual brilliance, as I said before, to get them out of the shit. I think the Dolphins, as I said before, they will have some big wins this year due to the attack. If they can rectify that defense, which I got no doubt Christian Wolf will be pulling up and showing everyone what they're doing wrong, they will be better for the run.
100%. Only thing I really want to bring up for the Gold Coast Titans, I mean, we talked about Kinney already. He was outstanding at stages of this game, but, mate, Tino and his minutes. It seems like Hane's come in to this Titan side with coaching, and he's just got Tino playing that standard middle forward role. With how key Tino is to that middle part of the field, like Tino's run for around 100 metres 2 weeks in a row, where usually we're used to seeing that 150 plus. He's bashing blokes. He's key to this side. He's playing 60 plus minutes. He's playing like around 46 minutes in this game and only 103 run metres.
Now, I'm going to put something out there. I don't even know if this is true. I'm just going to put it out there. I think Josh Hane's kind of saving Tino from himself. And I think it's allowing the other blokes around him to gain some valuable NRL game time experience. I think as the season goes on, Tino will get up back to that 60, 65, 70 minutes of rugby league. Tino's a shoo-in for Origin. And I think, as I said before, Josh Hane may have a little bit of a mad scientist hat on and be saving him a little bit just for those sort of thickened parts of the season, around Origin time. Obviously, Tino's going to be involved in that. And then, towards the sort of back end after Origin is when it's usually hard for those players that have had a big year. So I think looking at it, he may be trying to keep him, fresh and allow those sort of players that don't get as many minutes the opportunity to get in there and help around and learn some hard lessons, which I think will be better for the Titans in the long run and obviously save some K's and Tino's leg, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I agree. I think that's probably the thing. They're probably trying to taper his minutes a little bit and just get him ripe for the back end or the midpoint of the season. Mate, let's get stuck into the next round. Round 3, brought to you by Bear Bet. If you're going to have a punt, you make sure to do it with Bear Bet, but more importantly, do it responsibly. Let's get stuck into your Thursday. The Canberra Raiders are taking on the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. Canberra paying $1.88. The Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs $1.96, so not too much separating both of these guys. Which way are you going to go?
I'm going to go the Raiders because they got hammered over in New Zealand and they're going back home to Canberra. Bulldogs have just come off the bye. Obviously, there's been a bomb dropped into their dressing room with Xerri yesterday. That could create a little bit of disruption depending on how the team is picked. But I'm going to go the Raiders.
Raiders at home after a really disappointing loss. It reeks of a Raiders win. So, look, I'm with you. I'm going to go Canberra to get the job done at home. Friday, you got the Roosters taking on the Penrith Panthers. What a Friday we've got up store here, the 2 games. It's got Roosters and Panthers and then Storm Broncos. Like, that is crazy.
Mate, order some pizza and get your feet up on the couch.
Yeah, that is awesome. Roosters, Penrith, mate. Which way are you leaning this?
You can't go past the Panthers.
Yeah,
you can't go past the Panthers, in my opinion. Mate, I'm not saying that the Roosters won't turn up and have a crack because they've got a great team, but I can't go past the Panthers at the moment.
I think the discipline could let the Roosters down in this one. If Penrith get too much ball, they're going to be too hard to stop.
Yeah.
Melbourne Broncos. Melbourne are the favourites of this one and at home against the Broncos. So Amy Park, not at Suncorp anymore. Oh, what are we doing?
Mate, that's tough because the Broncos are coming off some losses and no, I'm gonna stay the Storm. I'm gonna stay the Storm. I think they can be too clinical. They're down in Melbourne. The Broncos, I've got no doubts they'll play finals, but they haven't shown me enough to beat Melbourne in round 3 down in Melbourne.
I'm with you, and I'm gonna do this with no confidence because I want a roughie, and I think I need to give you a little bit of a kick up as well with the tipping and let you have some. I'm gonna go the Broncos. I think they need this win as a bit of a confidence booster to get them in the right headspace for the rest of the year. And just for Reece Walsh, as you said, he needs to tick over into some good form and start firing. I think this will be the game where he sort of stands up and goes, you know what, it's a big game. We're going up against the competition for heavyweights and the favourites, and he's going to stand up. So give me the Broncos at 259 too. It's not too bad value on Bear Bet. Saturday, Knights and the Wars at Newcastle home. We spoke about this one. What are you going to lean towards on this one?
You know what? I'm going to call the Knights here. I'm going to call the Knights just because the Warriors, I don't want to say it, but they're due for a loss and travel to Newcastle, mate, and the Knights playing at home. It's their first home game. I think they're going to turn up and they're going to surprise a lot of people. So I'm going to tip the Knights to upset the Warriors.
Give me the Wars. I think they're just too clinical at the moment. They've got good structures. Tanner Boyd's playing the house down. Knights without a few players. Yes, they played well at Manly, but Manly were not great. So give me the Wars. I think they get the job done. Cronulla taking on the Dolphins. This will be an interesting game. Cronulla obviously coming off a loss, and the Dolphins need to fix up a few things defensively. It is at Shark Park. So what are we thinking?
I'm on the Sharks, mate.
Yeah, same here. Take the Sharks. South Sydney going up against the Tigers as well. South Sydney at home. Tigers off a really good win. This could go either way for me.
I'm emotionally tipping here, and I'm going the Tigers.
All right. I will go South Sydney, I think, at home. New halfback too as well coming in. They're going to have their third halfback in the third straight week. So that'll be interesting. I'll go South Sydney because it's my team and I can't bet against them. Yep. Parramatta going up against St. George. Interesting game. Obviously, Parramatta playing some decent footy at the moment, coming off a good win. St. George, bit of confidence from last week. What are we thinking?
I'm on the Mighties.
All right, I will take Parramatta. I'll take Parramatta at home.
Yep.
And then to finish us off, a bit of a poo slinger on your Sunday. Got the Cowboys taking on the Titans. You may as well call this one the spoon bowl early. What are we thinking?
I don't even know if I'm going to watch this game. I'll go the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think they need this win, to be fair. It is at North Queensland home. I think they need a bit of a win here to boost the confidence. I'll take the Cowboys as well. I like your thinking there. They are the $1.57 favourites somehow, but I'm going to go ahead and take the Cows. There you go. That is your 4th episode, I think, now of Momentum. So make sure you go ahead and subscribe, become a part of the team. Make sure as well, On Track Meals, you can get 10% off your meals by using the code Momentum. Same with the breathies as well, the nose tape and the mouth tape. You can get 10% off by using the code Momentum. So head to their respective Instagram pages. Their links will be in the bios. Their links are in our bio as well. So head to our bio on Instagram and give us a follow at Momentum Rugby League Podcast. Jakey, a pleasure. Keen to get stuck into the footy this weekend. Should be good.
Hopefully I can get more than 4 tips this week. Jeez.
It's having a rough start to the year, old Jakey.
Oh, my God.
All right. See you next week.
See you, mate. Bye.